Why are we so uncomfortable with silence? Did you notice right now that people were kind of laughing nervously, looking around like, what's going on? That last TED Talk came on and I started laughing because that was the initial part of my talk. And I think that when it comes to discovering your passion, solitude is actually the first step. So oftentimes I ask high school students, I ask my peers who are working, I ask parents, hey, what are you excited about? How are things going? And oftentimes it's always the same thing. Oh, school, busy, it's a grind, I'm tired, just looking forward to the weekend, whatever. And I don't think we ever have time to sit down, just like that last video, and just do nothing, not be distracted and things like that. I think in that time of just that silence, there's a lot of awkwardness that we feel. I think high school students really are in love with awkwardness, or at least really attached to it. And that actually prevents us a lot of times. It holds us back from actually doing anything that we truly might be curious about or things that we care about, right? It's like, that's too awkward. It would be weird to go talk to that random stranger. It would be weird to try out that dance move on the dance floor, things like that. And I think that awkwardness is actually tied to something bigger, which I think is loneliness, right? We don't want to be alone. We don't want to stick out. And so we would rather just stick with what people expect out of us. We'd rather stick with what everybody else is doing, and that way we don't have to worry about being alone. We don't have to worry about things being awkward. But in that process, we never actually think about what we want to do, and we never actually act on it. We don't think about what our greatest desires are, or what really might make us feel alive. And so I often think, what are you looking forward to? What makes you feel alive? And so many times the answer is, I don't really know. I don't have time for that, right? So I think solitude is kind of this unorthodox first step towards discovering your passion. There's a quote that I really like, is that if we never learn how to be alone, then all we'll really know how to be is lonely. And I think that's really important. So taking those 5-10 minutes every day is that first step. So a brief history about myself. My name's Oliver. I grew up in the South Bay in Santa Clara, born and raised there. And in high school, I think I was like a lot of you guys. I really cared about the traditional norms of success, right? Like grades, get into a good college, do extracurriculars, have a good reputation with everybody, try not to, always try to please people, things like that. When I went to college for the first couple of years, I probably changed my major 5 or 6 times because I had no idea what I actually wanted to do. My whole life, I had just been doing things that people expected of me and trying to do that as well as possible. And so what I like to call it is the privilege of cost-benefit paralysis. You have so many choices and privileges that your parents sacrificed for you that you don't even know what you want to do. Because you can make all these lists of pros and cons, and it's like, well, if I choose this, then I can do this. If I choose this, I can do this. And at the end of the day, you have no idea what you actually want. You feel paralyzed. And I think you guys will probably come in contact with that when you make decisions about college, make decisions about your first job, even make decisions about your relationships, friendships, dating lives, things like that. It's this cost-benefit paralysis. So in high school, I was really passionate about sports and music, but I knew that I wasn't talented enough, or I didn't feel like I was talented enough to become the next Justin Bieber, thank goodness, or the next LeBron James, unfortunately. But as I went on, I think I started getting kind of frustrated with just taking classes to get a high GPA so I could get into the business school, or taking courses that everybody else was taking, but I had no interest in. And so I eventually, the summer after my second year, I decided to go to Ghana to volunteer there at a school. And I decided to go there alone because I knew that if I went with a group, I would just rely on the people I knew and become close with them and not really actually try to immerse myself in the culture. And that summer in Ghana was probably the loneliest time of my life. I cared a lot about my social media, how many likes does my status have? How many friends do I have on Facebook? Is my profile picture representative of my image of being sporty and musical and also a good person at the same time? I cared so much about that. And then I go to Ghana and nobody cares about that at all. They just see this guy. And their only exposure to Asians really was kung fu movies. So when I walked down the street, people just called me Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee all day. And so that really put me in check because I realized, wow, a lot of the things I put my identity in and the things I value mean pretty much nothing in 90% of the world. I'm like making this social construct such a big part of my life, and it doesn't need to be this huge stressor. And I saw people who were really actually happy, even though they didn't have very much. They lived life so much more fully, they felt with so much more emotion and lived with so much more passion than my friends who had everything, and yet were always, frustrated and tired and just like stressed all day. So that trip really changed me, and I went to India the next year to teach at a school, and I loved it. And really, the students and the people there taught me so much. It wasn't me really contributing much at all to these developing countries. They were teaching me. And then India led to a job in Boston after I graduated from Berkeley. I came back this year. I'm teaching music, and I love music. And then I'm going to hopefully become a high school history teacher in the next couple years. So I feel like I've walked in your shoes growing up in the South Bay, having a very privileged upper middle class upbringing, but I'm still on the journey, and I don't have all the answers. So hopefully you'll have something to gain from this talk. So first, if we're talking about discovering your passion, I think we really have to be on the same page. So what is passion? And I think I want to define it this way. So passion to me is dedication and care that goes beyond focusing on the outcome, beyond focusing on the results. And it's like sacrifice. I heard earlier there's a talk in the morning about how passion is suffering. And it's similar in this way. I look at passion as something you're willing to sacrifice for, but you're not thinking about the cost. You're not complaining like, well, all of us can work really hard for grades and colleges and money, but we're also always thinking, well, if I don't get that, then what's the point, right? But passion to me is not focusing on complaining about that process. It's like you actually enjoy that process. And finally, to me, passion is not just a career, but it's a way of life. It's a mindset. So in those little moments, what is meaningful to you? On a day-to-day level at school or at work, do you feel alive? Do you feel like it's meaningful to you? So here are some of the ways that I think we tend to think about passion. We think of passion as purely like this emotion and this feeling, right? It's like the love at first sight or happily ever after kind of view. But I think we all know that love at first sight does not exist after watching Frozen. So I think you guys should just take that idea and just let it go, okay? And the other ways we kind of think about it is with a fixed mindset. So earlier we talked about like that linear path, right? We think that, if I just do this, then I'll eventually get there, and everything's gonna work out. We have our 5-year plan, we have our 10-year plan, and that's the way to achieve success and happiness and find love. If I just buy roses on Valentine's Day for 5 years, I'll find my true love or something like that, I don't know. But I don't think that that's how passion, I don't think that's how happiness, I don't think that that's how love really works. We also tend to think of things with binaries, black and white. So either, that person is passionate about music, but I could never do that. That person really cares about, computer science and engineering, but I could never do that. You're either born with it or you're not. But I don't think that is true either. I think it's a lot of incremental steps. I think it's a lot of choices and intentions along the way. And when you choose to sacrifice for something, that's when it becomes meaningful to you. It's not like you find a pot of gold and then that's your passion and you're just happy for the rest of your life. Actually, it's like, no, I'm gonna choose to do this, and I failed, no, I'm still gonna choose to do this. Oh, I had like a little success, I'm gonna keep choosing to do this, and more doors open along the way. So, the reason I chose to describe this as discovering your passion and not finding your passion is exactly that reason. It's not like you just chance upon it, you're searching and you just find it and like life's good, like happily ever after. It's like you're always on that journey. Even if you found, whether it's education or sports or something like that, you still will have to go through a lot of suffering and sacrifice along the way. And it's not just glory days after you find it, right? So it's discovery. So this is my family, and they've taught me a lot about how it's not just a destination and it's a journey. My mom, about exactly a year ago, was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, stage 4. And within 6 months, she passed away. And she was completely healthy before that. It was completely unexpected. And she took care of her body, always ate organic foods, exercised, cared about meditation, all those things. And it really like shook our family a lot. It was probably like the toughest year of my life. But as I reflected back on it, like I found out around Memorial Day last year, and I was in Boston, and I got to take the day off work, and I was walking across the bridge to Cambridge to be with one of my family friends. And even though I was so emotional, I also felt some level of peace because I thought about, wow, we're so lucky that we got to spend 23 years together. We're so lucky that she got to come to my graduations, that she got to see me perform, that we have a close-knit family, that we could communicate about personal things and not feel judged, and we could be open with that. You know, even though this is such a tragic event, we're so lucky. And I realized there was a lot about those in-between moments, those ordinary, mundane moments that made it special. It wasn't just about, you know, the weddings or the big events. It was all about that mindfulness, that day-to-day, in-between moments that really made it meaningful. So to me, I think don't focus on the destination, just focus on that present moment, that day-to-day, and feel alive and feel meaningful in those moments. And when you look back on it, then you'll be like, wow, I'm so content, I'm so at peace with what's happened, even if it is tragic. So a lot of times we hear the idea of practice makes perfect, right? But I want to argue that practice actually makes passion. It's something that you choose to cultivate and develop. So first step is to practice solitude and discomfort. So we kind of did that in the beginning. I think with solitude, you can actually have some more self-awareness, maybe some more humility and creativity, because you start thinking of things differently. So what does that discomfort reveal about you? Do you always need to rely on other people's approval for comfort? Do you care so much about your reputation that you'll do things for expectations without ever thinking about what you actually want? Next, I would say, is to practice courage and hope. So these are kind of like qualities or things that we don't think you can ever really practice. You either have courage or you're a hopeful person or not. But I would argue that it's something you actually have to choose to practice. So I think of it like a hot air balloon. You have your hot air balloon, everybody starts out on the ground, and you stay on the ground because you have sandbags. Sandbags are your fears. So instead of facing your fears, I would say chase down your fears. Think about what your fears are and then attack them, address that. So every time you let a sandbag over the side, it's hard, it's heavy, it's inconvenient, it's a lot safer and comfortable to be on the ground. But every time you release it, your hot air balloon can fly higher, right? And as you fly higher, you have a very different perspective of how things look, right, with that bird's eye view. And as you keep going, you can just keep rising and keep, ascending. So I was listening to a talk by Maya Angelou, who recently passed away, and she talked about how courage and hope are fundamental for consistency. A lot of times we feel super inspired, and then from a trip, a camp, a retreat, and we're like, I'm gonna change the world, or New Year's resolution, I'm gonna lose 20 pounds. And then you go back to your old environment and you go back to your same habits, right? But if you have courage and hope and you actually practice them, you don't think that you just find a pot of gold and you have courage and hope, but you actually practice it day in and day out by chasing your fears down, acknowledging your fears, then you're more likely to be consistent in following out what you actually want to do. So I want to try something, and it's going along these lines. I want to face my fears. So some of my fears, for example, are choosing to be a teacher. I'm not going to make enough money. It's not going to be a prestigious sort of career. Last year I was dating this girl. We went on one date, and then she told her parents, and they're like, first question they asked her is so what does he do? And she's like, oh, education. And they're like, no. They're like, how's he going to support you? And I was like, this is one date. Oh my goodness. Anyway, that was kind of a tangential. But basically, so I need you guys essentially to boo me on stage. That's one of my fears too, to boo me. So I need this side of the room, you guys are going to shout things like, you're just a teacher, you'll never make it. And the people in the middle, I want you to just boo as loud as you can. And then the people on this side, if you could just say you'll never be able to support a family. So we're going to do that for 15, 20 seconds, hopefully, until I start feeling terrible about myself. And then when I go like this, if you guys could stop, that'd be really great. All right? So I need you to be really loud, though. Otherwise, this is not going to work. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. All right. Thank you. Thank you. So, and now for my act of courage, and also to try to exhibit some of my passion, I would like to share something with you. And it goes like this. Smile though your heart is aching. Smile even though it's breaking. When there are clouds in the sky, you'll get by. If you smile through your fears and sorrow, smile and maybe tomorrow you'll see the sun come shining through for you. Light up your face with gladness, hide every trace of sadness. Though a tear may be ever so near, if you smile, then you'll be surrounded. Smile and maybe you'll know that I forgot the lyrics and that's a fear of mine. Smile, just smile. Thank you. So that really didn't go how I wanted it to go. I practiced that song literally like 100 times, but I still messed up. But it's all good. But I think face those fears, seek them out. Don't just let events happen to you and then respond. Seek them out and make that change, right? So the next thing I would say, this is a project I did at Berkeley. It's called Here to Listen. And so there's a space on Berkeley's campus where thousands of people pass through every single day and for class and everything like that. And a lot of times people are doing passing out flyers, petitions. It's really loud and noisy. And a lot of times people are to the point where they pretend like they're on their cell phones so that people won't pass them flyers, even though they're not really talking. And my friend described it well. She said, I feel like on Sprout, everybody is shouting and no one's listening. And that really resonated with me. And so we decided to stand there and with signs that said, here to listen, to provide a space for listening. We wanted to practice listening, and we wanted to show people that we valued their story and their opinions. And so the thing I think the third step is practice listening and observing. Look at an experience and think about what is everybody thinking and everybody doing, and how can I think about it differently, right? And I think when you what does it mean to actually practice listening is that you show that you value them, you ask questions beyond just how are you, or what's for homework today, or how was your day at school? But you think deeper and you ask questions that will actually reveal things from other people, and then you share things along the way. That's also part of great listening that will make a real connection and a real meaningful interaction happen. And I think that along the way, if you demonstrate that, doors will open for you and opportunities will open as well. And then the fourth step is to seek out community and role models. After today, maybe there are some things that resonated with you, but once you go back to school or the summer, you're lazy, you're like, oh, well, I'm just gonna go back to how things have been, because you've already practiced that for the last 15, 18, 20, 30, however old you are, years, right? So seeking out community and role models is actually what gets you to be able to continue this beyond that inspiring moment, right? Have that inspiring moment, but then find people who will actually challenge you to be better, not just people who are convenient and in your classrooms. Find people who will support you, and I think Jim Rohn's a famous motivational speaker, and he talks about we're the average of the 5 people we are closest to. So think about those 5 closest people, and if those are people that don't always share the exact same values as you, it's not like you have to say goodbye to them, but find people who will empower you to continue beyond that. So in summary, redefine what it means to be passionate, or what passion really means. It's a day-to-day thing. It's about sacrifice. It's about choice and intention. And then practice these things. These are not just qualities that you're born with or that you find, but that you actually have to work on day to day. So along the way, I think just trust that opportunities will open up for you and they'll fall into place, but just not necessarily in the way you might think. I think if you hear about anybody's stories, if you ask people who are doing things they're passionate about, their stories were never like, oh yeah, when I was 18, I just decided to do this, and I've been successful and happy for the next 40 years of my life. It's been jumping around all over the place, and you saw that with the TED Talks earlier today, and you'll see that all the time. But you have to ask the questions and listen to the stories in order to really appreciate that. But I would love to keep in touch. If you have questions, feedbacks, or anything like that, email me. We can have coffee, chat, and talk about these things. I love hearing from high school students. I'll be working with you guys probably for a long time. So this is my email. Feel free to reach out. And thank you guys so much for listening.